Hello, Adam Gower here, and I build digital marketing systems for real estate professionals so you can find more investors, raise more money, and do bigger and more syndicated deals. For more information about that, go to gowercrowd.com. And today, welcome to the podcast, Syndication in the Digital Age, with today's guest, Bobby Frisch, who is founder and CEO at Firelight Camps. Now, Firelight Camps is the most charming getaway vacation option you could try to find anywhere. It is glamping on a quite delightful scale. And one of the reasons I was particularly interested in talking to Bobby today was that he has been doing a capital raise on WeFunder. Now, the term crowdfunding has become synonymous with digital marketing for real estate professionals who want to raise money online. But crowdfunding is actually an accidental term that came out of the Jobs Act of 2012. And the Jobs Act of 2012 had a small section in there that allowed for what was called crowdfunding. It's Regulation CF for crowdfunding. Now, under Regulation CF, there certainly are real estate sponsors who do raise capital, small change, for example, being one of the most dominant, certainly the earliest in Regulation CF real estate crowdfunding. But by far, the biggest consumer of Reg CF has nothing at all to do with real estate. It's small companies or startup companies. That was the essence of what the Jobs Act was, right? Jumpstart our business startups. And Bobby over there at Firelight Camps has been doing some fundraising on WeFunder. So I thought it would be interesting to have a chat with him to learn a little more about what it's like to raise money on WeFunder, to learn more about the kind of business that he has, by way of contrasting it with commercial real estate capital formation. So that's what we're going to talk about. Now, if you want to raise more money for real estate syndications, and if you want to do bigger and more deals, then we can help you do that here at Gower Crowd. To find out more about what we do and how you can learn more about digital marketing for real estate syndications, go to gowercrowd.com. And my recommendation, the best, fastest, was there's so much information there. The best thing you could do is subscribe to our newsletters. You'll see a big subscribe button on the homepage there. Go ahead, subscribe to the newsletter. You will get emails on Wednesday that will be updates on the prior week's commercial real estate crowdfunding news and events. And then on weekends will always be educational content. So go ahead and subscribe there. Learn more about real estate syndication and the overlap with digital marketing. And right now, I'm so happy to introduce you to Bobby Frisch, founder and CEO at Firelight Camps, who is going to talk about his experience raising capital online using Regulation CF, regulation crowdfunding at WeFunder. Bobby Frisch, what a pleasure to meet you. I absolutely love your business. It is the coolest thing. Firelight Camps, luxury camping is just such a fantastic idea. Here's what I want to talk to you about today. We did just prep slightly, but I want to do a little bit of myth busting, right? This idea of crowdfunding. And so the way to do that, and I mentioned before that what I tell people is my introduction to digital marketing was when I went into left real estate, not left real estate, but took up residence in a startup incubator. Some years ago. And that's how I discovered the concept of digital marketing, the language of digital marketing. So I kind of wanted to start there. You were an advisor, weren't you, in an incubator?
That's right.
And so what I'm interested in knowing is what kind of mindset do successful digital marketers who are startup digital marketers, what kind of mindset do they have that makes them successful?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. First of all, thanks for having me on the podcast. Really happy to be here and appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned incubators because we really straddle both worlds. We're a startup, but we're also involved in real estate, and that's one thing we've kind of contended with over the past couple of years as we've launched the company. In that we really do have a foot in both worlds, right? We we're an operating company, we're a developer, but also, we play in the real estate world. So when we first came to equity crowdfunding in real estate, it was very interesting to see kind of the interplay between, the more startup-y incubator, marketing focused or tech focused companies, and how different they are than the crowdfunding world in real estate. So to answer your question, we're currently undergoing a crowdfunding raise right now, but not on a traditional real estate syndication website. We are on more of a startup focused website that's called WeFunder.
Right. And so as I mentioned, there is this kind of negative connotation amongst commercial real estate, seasoned commercial real estate pros. Mm-hmm. When I talk about crowdfunding, in fact, the term crowdfunding has become less used. Actually, I talk about crowdfunded syndications because really it is just syndications. Crowdfunding is nothing more than syndications. It's what everybody's been doing. But there is this negative connotation, and that negative connotation is, well, I'm a 30, 40 year seasoned real estate veteran. I don't want to put my deal on anything like WeFunder, right? That's like, isn't that just kind of playtime versus like the real, like what adults do? So explain to me a little bit, can you just kind of, what do you think of that?
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting. And we I honestly had a lot of those thoughts initially before we went down this crowdfunding path. First, it may be helpful if your listeners to understand a bit about our company. So we are a luxury camping development and management company, and we have a brand called Firelight Camps. And we're basically a cross between a boutique hotel and a traditional campground. So we let people get outside and experience nature, spending the night in a big, beautiful canvas safari tent back in the woods. With real furniture and hardwood floors. We have a common area with a bar, and we provide breakfast. So we're really a cross between a boutique hotel and camping. And today it's come to be known as glamping. So we're squarely within that industry. So my initial reactions to crowdfunding were similar. One of the biggest pushbacks we heard from people who had thought about it and didn't go through with it was, oh my gosh, how can we have 1,000 people on our cap table? If everyone's coming in at these smaller check sizes, how do you deal with that? And doesn't that preclude you from other fundraising sources to have such a huge, messy cap table? And the industry is very much still evolving. And some of these platforms like WeFunder, for example, have heard that feedback and have directly addressed it. One of the reasons we did decide to go with WeFunder rather than some of the other platforms is they actually take however many investors you have. It could be 1,000, could be fewer, 100, a couple hundred people, and they actually roll them up onto one line on your cap table, and they assign one lead investor the voting power over all those investors. So, they hadn't initially been doing that, and some of the other platforms don't do that. But that really makes, your life as a founder easier, that they address that question directly. You can choose to still have contact with as many investors as you like, but you're only dealing with the one lead investor in terms of voting power, which is a big help.
When you talk about cap tables, so now you are talking about a startup world, aren't you? This is the idea that you have round seed round, and then you'll have a series A and a B and a C and a D and an E and an F and a G and however many you do, which is actually very different from commercial real estate where you don't have seed. I mean, you're a startup, right? So what are the similarities, or how do you apply what you're doing now? Because they are actually separate worlds. These are, when you're raising money strictly for real estate, that you're not doing a startup. You're borrowing money from a bank, doing a lot of work, usually bigger numbers, etc. I mean, I know you've raised a couple of million so far, so you're doing pretty well. But what is the fundamental difference then between the startup world, if you like, and commercial real estate?
Sure.
Crowdfunding. And I think the difference that we talked about by email was, so what is the difference between WeFunder and the likes of, for example, CrowdStreet, just from that kind of structural perspective?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier how we do sort of straddle both worlds. And this is exactly how. So on WeFunder, we are raising money for our operating company, the Firelight Camps brand. If you go on to wefunder.com/Firelight Camps, you'll see our campaign page there. You can buy shares, ownership in our top line operating company, and you will own a piece of Firelight Camps as we expand across the country. So we're selling shares in our operating company, much as a startup would. Also, our growth plan, we have our second location now under development in the Catskills Mountains of New York, just about 2 hours from New York City. And we're just now starting to circle commitments for that property level investment as a commercial real estate fundraise would go as well. So we'll have an outside pool of investors for that larger property level investment. And that's what it initially, took us to the crowdfunding real estate world is, hey, we've got to raise a couple million for our second location to close on the property, to buy the dirt, and to undergo the actual construction, and which is what brought me to the real estate crowdfunding world. And we definitely didn't fit in. We are not a cookie cutter, straight up commercial real estate project, and it's hospitality. So we weren't, obviously a good fit for that, which is why I then came across WeFunder. But I don't think there's anything actually precluding a commercial real estate project from going through a platform like WeFunder. But WeFunder and the more startup focused platforms are more focused on companies that are selling equity in their brand rather than a project specific, real estate focused project like CrowdStreet.
And so are you, so the current campaign is for the operating company.
That's right.
But for the property level investment, are you also going to crowdfund that on WeFunder, or are you doing that differently?
We're considering it. Right now we're just taking commitments from individuals, and we'll try to put that together, just through direct contacts. We considered putting it on more of the the equity, the real estate, commercial real estate crowdfunding platforms. But again, I don't think we quite fit in. Most of them don't allow kind of these more fringe, alternate accommodation type companies to list on there. So no, probably not. But we may choose to go that path in the future after we're a more established company and do those property level investments, through online syndication too.
Right. So now let's start talking. I want to talk about marketing and digital marketing. So when you list on someone like WeFunder, presumably they provide pretty decent exposure to an established investor base, and you go on there, and I'm just guessing because I'm truly not that familiar. I understand because there's a different world. But basically, you go into their marketplace, and then depending on the kind of interaction that you get from people, you'll filter up to the top and be featured, or maybe you can pay to be featured, etc. So they're providing you with top of funnel investor access. And just for clarification, non-accredited investors as well, presumably.
That's correct.
Okay, so a couple of questions on. I did want to go and talk to you about marketing and what are best practices, digital marketing best practices. That's really my focus, Bobby. It's really what I want to talk about. So let's get back to that. We'll talk about that in the light of what you saw in eLab as well, in the startup incubator that you were at, accelerator. But I just had a thought. Is the nature of the investment on WeFunder a donation, or is it actually an investment? Tell me that.
Yeah, no, it is actually an investment. You're buying shares in our private company, and you will own a small slice of equity in our company with those shares. It's not a donation. It's also not a deposit on a future stay. There are platforms that do that. That's more the Kickstarter kind of world. But this is, called equity crowdfunding because you are buying equity in our company and you will own shares in the business going forward.
Yeah. But this isn't a funding portal, isn't it? Is it? This isn't regulation crowdfunding, or is it?
It is.
This is Reg CF.
This is Reg CF through the Jobs Act.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
So WeFunder is a crowdfunding portal under
Yeah,
the Jobs Act of 2012. I didn't
that's correct.
realize that. Interesting.
Yeah, and
And
there's
you're
quite a
doing,
few
hmm,
that focus on startups. Like Start Engine is another one. WeFunder is, I think, the biggest right now. But
okay.
yes, it is RIGF,
Yeah, so
and
the one
we'll.
that I'm most sorry, gosh, cut you
Yeah.
off. That's terrible, isn't it? It's just because your lips were moving, but I couldn't hear anything. Yes, so the one that I'm familiar with on the real estate side is Small Change, and they have a very different approach. They're looking at real estate impact investing primarily, but they are strictly real estate. They're a regulation CF, Reg CF crowdfunding portal. All right, got it. That's interesting. Now, marketing. So you are restricted about the kind of marketing you can do under Reg CF controls, etc. But tell me something about, let's talk about best practices for digital marketing. What do you do? I mean, obviously, you're a very young fella. You pointed to one gray hair. I think you're lying. You probably just whited it out earlier. There's no chance you've got any gray hair yet. But so you are. This is what I used to like to tell my students when I was teaching commercial real estate and finance. Was I'd tell them, hey, look, these are like 18-year-old students, 19-year-old students. Look, I'm 30 years ahead of you in real estate. But even though you're only 20 years old, you're 30 years ahead of me in digital marketing. Yeah, when I first started going. So that's what I think. So please tell me, I want to hear from you. What are best practices outside of the restrictions that you have doing a Reg CF offering? What are the best practices for digital marketing, especially in your case where it's a kind of pseudo real estate play?
Right. Yeah, it's a good question, and it's something we thought a lot about before we launched the campaign and had some discussion. WeFunder portal itself. So you did mention, WeFunder does have a large dedicated crowd of people who are on the site. Some of them invest literally in every deal that comes through there, just because they're into Reg CF. And so that is, you can expect that to be about a third of your campaign. So complete strangers, people who didn't know our company beforehand, who know the WeFunder portal and are active investors on there. And every platform is a little different, but you want to understand and take advantage of their built-in marketing. So at certain levels, once you hit X funding, they push you out through their newsletter marketing. They have a most raised every week, section. That gets you up, above the fold and more visibility. So you need to understand how the platform itself markets, and that's definitely one prong, but really not enough to have a successful campaign. It's shown that companies that already have a dedicated following and a sort of a tribe of guests or a tribe of people who already know the company or customers, that makes probably the biggest difference. If you're a complete startup with no product or customers or anything, or any visibility already, I think it's a tougher game. We've been around for a couple of years. We've hosted 35,000 plus people at our site in Ithaca, New York, and we already have somewhat of a following on Instagram, which is a big channel for us, and Facebook as well. So being able to tap those existing customers, your existing followers, does make a big difference. So, it's a multi-pronged approach for us. It's the WeFunder platform, like I mentioned. We are doing a lot of social media through our existing channels, Instagram probably being the biggest, LinkedIn as well is actually a very interesting one. And we do things like this, like podcasts and producing content, talking about it.
I love this. So we're talking startup world. So let's spin back. You're a startup. Let's spin back. I hope I'm not repeating myself on the podcast. I know I've said it to you before, but what I do tell people is that I learned digital marketing from guys exactly like you in a startup incubator, speaking a foreign language, as far as I was concerned. What is Google Analytics? I had no idea. Pixel? That was super advanced for me. A funnel? Not a clue. I didn't know anything. So please spin back and share with me and kind of refresh my memory what it used to look like at that very, very early stage where you have a startup who is pitching. You talked about having those that do well are those that have their own tribe already. but you worked at eLab, Startup Accelerator, and you're a startup as well, when you had 0 tribe. So how do you get that engine going? What do the best startup folk do to get that tribe up and going and to start getting their message out? What are the key things that you've seen people do that are most effective?
Sure. Well, yeah, I think we are a startup, but we again don't fit squarely into the tech world. We provide an experience for people to get outside into the woods, and we're also a real estate company along those lines. So I think our path has been different than an app company or a software as a services company that really puts all their weight behind digital marketing. So this, I think we're a bit of a different company in that sense. But I think the most important thing is to get your product out there, as soon as possible. The minimum viable product, the MVP, is something a lot of startup people talk about. Mm-hmm. And we did think about that from the beginning. And when we first launched Firelight Camps, we just started with about 4 tents back in the woods. And we set them up to sort of prove that we could get the rates that we thought we could, and that people would actually like the experience. Which is
how did you market? So now you got 4 tents. So you raised a bit of money, right? You go out, you like, what's our MVP? You're sweating because you're afraid no one's going to show up. This is what happens to me all the time. Every time I do a campaign, I'm afraid it's going to be me in an empty room. Yeah. So there you are. That first day, you set them up. 35,000 people, you told me, have been through your camps now. On day 1, you had 0. I want to hear how you marketed. What did you do?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was quite a while ago now, but it's really been, luckily, the least of our worries getting people in. And I'll tell you why. It's because that was in 2014, and glamping was barely even a term then. But we immediately struck a chord with people. Back then, it was a big need of people wanting to get outside in a comfortable way, and now more than ever, this is the biggest year glamping's ever had in the U.S. So I think first it was our friends and family and word of mouth, and we had I had just come out of business school, and we had a community of people in upstate New York that just came through. And then, in the very beginning, we were lucky to get some press, and because it was obvious that the experience we were providing struck a chord with people right from that very first season, that we were lucky enough to get in the Wall Street Journal that very first year. We had some social media influencers come through and stay with us. And
did you invite them, or did they find you?
The first year they sort of found us, and then the second year we did do a influencer focused campaign where we brought in influencers and bloggers in the travel and fashion world, and that was a great way for us to sort of pepper these location focused micro influencers, and kind of peppered us through the internet all at once, and that really builds word of mouth quickly.
That's really interesting. So you started up right at the very beginning. You've described a few things. I want to come back to micro influencers, because that is a term that you and I know off the back of our hands, but is not commonly understood what that actually means. But what I do want to ask is, so you got some press, you spoke to your friends and relatives. What about your website? Right at the beginning, you built your tent. You didn't just build the tent, right? And you didn't just go out to friends and family. You created an online presence as well. Presumably, you had a website, you had social channels, you took photographs. Tell me, what did that ecosystem look like? Again, right at that very, very, very beginnings. What did you set up?
Yeah, so right from the beginning, we knew we wanted to create a brand, that resonated widely, and we had visions in the beginning of a multi-property company, with multiple locations. So we did think a lot up front about, what that brand looks like. And we did work with a marketing firm right up front to help us think through our customer profiles, what kind of imagery was going to be on the website in our digital presence. We put a lot of thought into our name and logo and color palette, and really birthed the company thoughtfully and intentionally from the very beginning. So, I think in a lot of ways, if you had landed on our website and we immediately got all the social media channels under our Firelight Camps name, that's a big thing you need to consider when you're first trying to name your company, that you can get all the handles that you need that make sense with your name. So if you had landed on our website in year one, when we just had 4 little tents back in the woods, we were a teeny tiny company, but our website and our branding and our company, kind of spoke to a larger, more professional operation. And I think that does help. People land on our website. That's still like the number one avenue for us for bookings. Over 95% of our bookings come direct, and that was because we've had so much word of mouth and grown organically like that. So we did put a lot of thought and effort into that, our initial digital presence.
And what kind of content, Bobby, did you produce right at the very beginning when you're sitting there? We've got a nice website. What do we have on it? So how did you think through that process?
Yeah, glamping is very photogenic. So we're lucky in that regard too. And we did put a lot of thought and effort into generating great photography and engaging, video snippets. Those two things more than anything. And a lot of those influencers we talked about, we had people come on property and they'd leave behind these, incredible photo sets, or really well produced little video, minute-long video snippets that work very well on social media and for online presence. And those, some of those we still use today. I had an interesting conversation with a boutique hotel owner, a friend who's older and of a different generation, and he was talking to me about.
Is he a millennial like me? Like a millennial like me?
He's a boomer. An older gentleman, and he was asking me what I thought about, this company who's going to hire for tens of thousands of dollars to come in and do these, slow pan videos of this hotel and do a whole photo set. And it was very traditional, old school way to think about, photo and video, and very expensive. And this whole, crew would come in and photograph every room. And that same week, we had an influencer come in. A friend of a friend, we didn't know them personally, but we allowed them to stay with us for free a midweek night. And she and her husband shot this 1-minute video, incredibly well produced, creative, and beautiful. And she really, captured the experience we create there and left it behind, for free. And that video is still featured on some of our sites. And, it literally cost us a free midweek room and breakfast. So that really, showed the kind of the new way of thinking of how to create great content versus the old way.
That is very interesting. Now, what about articles? You talked about a lot of traffic coming to your website, a lot of bookings coming to your website. So the only way I can imagine that happening is they see something on social media. So you must have a good social media presence, or SEO. And if they're doing searches and you're popping up, what are they searching for? And then kind of going back down that whole rabbit hole suggests to me that you're doing something on your website SEO related, which presumably is written content. So talk to me about that. What about articles and that kind of content that's driving traffic to your website?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do focus on that. SEO is definitely a big part of it. I'd say we put more focus on having engagement in social media, specifically Instagram, with the travel world. But yes, we absolutely make sure that our site makes sense from an SEO perspective, understanding, what people are searching for when they're looking for the kind of experience we provide. Glamping, it was a word, that didn't have any search volume when we started, but now you can see the graph. It's actually really interesting. Just, from 2011 to now, it's, looking like a hockey stick, the amount of people who search for it. And we do, try to capture some of that
And do you do that? I see now, of course, now I have to look at my screen, which is an appallingly rude thing to do. But I did want to run and see if you popped up. So do you actively create content that is designed specifically to attract organic traffic to your website? Because videos won't do that. They'll grab people once they're there. You have to have written content. So is that part of your strategy?
We do. We haven't done a lot of that, but we have a great marketing manager who, she's really into all the SEO strategies, and she did exactly that. We looked at keyword search terms and come up with combinations that we think are going to grab people and that will ring the Google algorithm and drive people to our site. And we do have a blog, and a lot of those blogs, they have to make sense, obviously. But our focus on things like that. For instance, one of our highest performing blogs that does drive a lot of people to our site is how to pack for a glamping trip. And our great, amazing marketing manager kind of noticed that, I think probably a year and a half ago, and saw that was something that was being searched for and not a lot of content out there at all. Wrote a great little piece on how to pack for a glamping trip. And I think if you Google it now, we're the first or second result for that. And that does drive people to our site. That's our best performer. There's other, similar things like, how to take your dog camping or where to go glamping with a dog. We did some honeymoon focused things, which are also, they do provide value to people, obviously, and we host them on our site. So yes, that is a part of it.
Yes. So for anybody interested, how to pack for glamping, boom, firelightcamps.com/blog. Perfect. And that's a really good one. That's a good one. All right. So let's see what else as far as marketing. I got distracted by looking online. I should never do that because I can only hold one thing in my head at once. I can't double task or whatever it's called, but multitask. So digital marketing, and you are raising money now. So it's a very different thing to be drawing customers to the business. And from what I've heard you say so far, that has been the main thrust of your marketing. I'm just putting words into your mouth a little bit, but that's primarily, you wanted people to come, influencers, and kind of get the message out. But raising money is a different thing. So how has your marketing, apart from listing on WeFunder, how has your communication online changed as you have started to raise money?
Yeah, no, it is a different thing. It's still a retail endeavor, but yes, convincing someone that we're a great brand and that we're creating a great experience, and to come and stay with us for a couple nights is a little different than convincing people of the market opportunity and that this is a great investment to grow with us as we expand. And the people we're reaching out to, there's definitely a lot of overlap, but it is a different story. But the first thing we started with in terms of doing this fundraising round, so we have done financing rounds in the past, more traditional angel investors and private wealthy individuals have invested with us. But this is a different animal going out to the public. But one of the main reasons we did it was, I really just loved the idea of democratizing the fundraising process, being able to open this up to non-accredited investors, and most importantly, being able to go back to those 35,000 people that I mentioned, people who already have stayed with us, who love our mission and who love the company and already, want to support us. Now they can come and invest in the company and take an ownership piece of the company. So, that was really the big impetus for doing it. And that's the first thing we did, before we even went out to the general public. We went out to our guests who have stayed with us before, those people who are already on our newsletter and who have stayed with us, and they kind of had the first shot at investing with us. Now, beyond that, the content is more focused on, education around the glamping industry, how incredibly quickly it's growing, how, in today's pandemic world, glamping is really kind of a golden thread within hospitality. It's performing extremely well especially compared to, traditional hotels right now, because people want to get out of the city and they want to get to more rural areas. They feel safer and comfortable in a big, nice, airy tent with no interior corridors where they can have some distance and privacy. So, those are the type of things that we talk about when marketing this investment opportunity rather than coming to stay with us.
Bobby, I can't believe how quickly it's gone. I'm going to roll into some final questions, but there is something I really do want to know, and I'm totally serious about this. I truly learned digital marketing at the very beginning of my life from startups, from the incubator that I was on. I know it's been a long time since you were in the incubator, but nevertheless, I'd like to ask you something. What are you seeing now? Forget WeFunder and Firelight Camps, et cetera, just for a moment. But what are you seeing in the digital marketing world, the online world, that you are finding the most exciting? What's coming towards us that you find particularly exciting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think. Look, I don't purport to be a digital marketing expert by any means. We have some great people on our team who are more in the weeds with that. So I might not be the best person to answer that question, but I will say, specifically in the travel world and real estate as well. The Instagram and social media is still, I think, undervalued. It still shocks me, how many people come and stay with us that literally stumbled across a beautiful picture of one of our tents while scrolling through Instagram and said, wow, what is that place? Hey, it's only a couple hours away. I'm going to book. So that really is a big booking channel for us, is our Instagram and social media presence. And I think that's still undervalued in the travel world, or not as understood as perhaps it could be. So we put a lot of focus on that, and we'll continue to.
And you also mentioned LinkedIn, didn't you? Tell me about that. Is that more on the fundraising side than it is on booking?
Absolutely.
Tell me about LinkedIn and how that works.
Yeah, we had never used LinkedIn to get people to come and stay with us, but we are leveraging it now for the fundraising platform. It's just interesting. People have business in mind when they're on the platform, and it's a quick way for me to leverage my personal contacts, in more of a business sense, people I went to graduate school with, and who expect to see that kind of content on there. And so, yeah, that's on the investment side, not on driving bookings.
And how do you do that, Bobby? Are you interacting with people via posts, or are you chatting with them, commenting, etc.? Just tell me what you're finding is working well for you, and then we'll wrap up with 3 questions.
Sure. That's right. I've done, personal. I think personal posts make a big difference, coming directly from me rather than, from quote unquote the company, because that way all my, past schoolmates, who haven't heard from me for a while see it and are more likely to engage. All my professors and people in the industry. There also is a growing community specifically around glamping. So we're active in that community. I'm an advisor on the American Glamping Association. So we're active through that, and that has a big following. And reposting, commenting on American Glamping Association or other active community networks like that does get you more visibility. We're pitching at the Eco Hotel Investment Summit at the end of this month. So, all those kind of pitch events and communities generate content, and being active in those and posting through those channels on LinkedIn and elsewhere, it does help.
Bobby, let me ask you 3 sign-off questions I ask all my guests. This is a kind of a lightning round. Number 1, what's the most important thing that somebody starting out raising money online should keep in mind?
I think the most important thing is just engagement on a lot of different levels, a lot of different channels, if you're going this crowdfunding route.
Second question, what's been the hardest lesson you've learned online, in your online world?
That's a good question. I think just generally, having a big picture view of it and having balance in general, work-life balance, because you can work online from home. Doesn't matter if you're in quarantine all day, every day. So you got to turn it off sometimes.
Last question. What are your key daily habits that keep you successful and focused?
It's a great question. I think for me, it's exercise and eating well, just getting those basics right. I would say sleep too, but I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, so that one I can't do very well. So I focus on the others.
Bobby Frisch, you are founder, right, at Firelight Camps. Thank you so very much. A real pleasure meeting you. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
Today.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
That was Bobby Frisch, founder and CEO at Firelight Camps. If you are a real estate professional and you would like to raise money online for your deals, find more prospects and convert them into being repeat active investors in your deals, then go to gowercrowd.com, subscribe to our newsletters. You will get some information in your inbox every single week that is educational, will show you exactly what you have to do. Masses of content goes out all the time over there that will help you up your game and become an even more effective capital raiser for your own deals. Okay, that's it. Thank you for listening. And thank you, Bobby Frisch, founder and CEO at Firelight Camps, for your time with me today. That is all for this episode. I'll see you next time. And in the meantime, stay well. And for now, this is Dr. Adam Gower signing off.